Oh, we're live.
Welcome to transmission number 42 on World Crypto Network. Today with Andreas from Eris Industries and Ksenia from World Crypto Network. Hi guys, thanks for joining me today.
Hello. So, today we're going to talk about blockchains without bitcoins, and maybe without coins at all, and about some use cases and potential applications of this technology. Um,
That's right, yeah. So I wanted to ask, first of all, Andreas, what is a blockchain?
Well, the way we use it is we use everything. We even use a coin, and we have the Tendermint client right now, but we don't really utilize um, the coin the way Bitcoin done. It's not a currency. It's more used to regulate, who can do what, who can mine, who can uh, how much can you transact, because transaction carries with it a cost in gas for executing the smart contracts and all that. So uh, we're really only interested in the uh, that it's easy to verify calculations and such, because of the blockchain structure and some of the other things about it, but not the currency itself, like Bitcoin, for example.
uh,
Okay, great.
yeah.
Ksenia, what would you say is a blockchain?
So basically, I had a question. Like we always hear about people referring to a blockchain as a database, and I'm sort of a little bit uncomfortable with it because it just makes me think of a database. And then there are distributed databases, as far as I know, which are not blockchains. So, and database made me think of something that I can store enormous amounts of information and columns, and it's almost like a spreadsheet, right? So I found it more safe to actually call it a data structure. But I'm not sure if it's correct. I don't know what Andreas would think. Let's say,
No, it is
yeah,
a data structure.
it is a data structure which is uh, very difficult to undo and to change the history, to change what was written into it. So in a way, like if you compare it to a database which is on someone's server, let's say, we can have some sort of a log um, functionality where everyone who logs into it and does something, it's gonna be recorded, but it's still not sure. Basically, anyone can just log in into it, do whatever they want, and sort of change whatever was stored in it, and it will pass unnoticed. So it is quite safe to actually use it a data structure. Um,
Yeah, it's very safe. You have the cryptographic keys, and then you have the fact that everything is logged, and the algorithms that ensure that. But like you say, it's a distributed database in a way.
so it
Uh,
is a type of distributed database.
yes, but you also have the virtual machine that let you execute this smart contract code. If you remove that, you basically have a distributed database.
Okay, great. So there's different ways to use a blockchain, and depending on how you set it up with the virtual machine that you're talking about, you would have a distributed database and, of course, a data structure as well. My other question is, what are some of the key differences between a private blockchain and a so-called public blockchain, whereas something like Bitcoin or Litecoin or an altcoin and a so-called private blockchain? What are the main differences?
Well,
Andreas?
the way we use these blockchain-based applications, where the blockchain is indeed a private one, is uh, you decide beforehand who gets to commit blocks, essentially. Tendermint, which is the client we currently use, has this proof of stake, and I told you this before. I'm not the blockchain guy in Eris. I'm not the expert here, so it's a bit of a best effort answer, but yes, it is. You decide beforehand. You can even write into the Genesis block is what we used before to write these permissions to who is allowed to mine and other things. And right now it's not working quite like that, but the idea is the same. There is basically trust. It's trustful. It's not a trustless system. You decide who gets to mine. You can alter that. So you can, let's say you have a company that is running I don't know, 20 or so servers that wants to keep all them. They want some redundancy, some data redundancy, operational redundancy. So they set up these blockchains. And they decide that computer X, Y, and Z, and so forth is allowed to mine, or in our case, they're allowed to commit blocks with the proof of stake. And that's really the difference. Yes, it's trust. There is no thing like proof of work or something like that. It's trust based completely.
So as far as I understand that is, let's say if you have let's say an association or a cooperative or a company, then you have an amount of like employees or members, and you give them a permission to mine, and then it's basically something, because blockchains are extremely transparent, like everything that ever happened on Bitcoin blockchain, everyone can see as well, right? So we can imagine some sort of cases where we don't want everyone to see absolutely everything, but at the same time, we might not necessarily be sure that everyone in the company or a big cooperative or whatever is completely well, we have to either trust like a board of directors, which are five people, or we can have 2,000 members mining this or committing the blocks, so they know that just one system administrator can't just log in and change everything. So let's say if it's votes in the organization, and maybe you can imagine that you can automate payments to, or we've been actually discussing with Chris for a while that we can try, as a prototype, we can try a distributed media channel. Let's say if it's a big, World Crypto Network is pretty small amount of people, but let's say if a media channel raises a certain amount of money and then certain people post their content and so on, they can be remunerated automatically. So the blockchain in this case can be private.
Okay, well,
that's how I imagine it as a use case.
Okay, I definitely see what you, Ksenia, what you were saying about you could have, a certain amount of employees that have access, and then not one person can alter the database. But just to be the devil's advocate here, or just to try to ask a simple question that might be not understanding everything, can I just use Google Documents or MySQL, or I don't know whatever exists, and give 100 people the password, and then everyone can see when something was edited? Why do I have to use a private blockchain? What's the benefit in using it, Andreas?
Yeah, that's we also ask that a lot, but it's mostly about well, you can't, for example, in the case of an SQL database, it's extremely difficult to have code, for example, distribute code. Like in this case, with the Aries stack, you'll have, let's assume that it isn't private now, but you have set it up so that you basically let everyone, and you use the Tendermint proof of stake algorithm, as was intended. So you allow anyone to. Well, in that case, everyone that's a node would essentially be running the code that makes up the application, the DApp, the distributed application that's being run. So what you do mostly, the most common use case we were thinking about is using the blockchain as the sort of the backend for some sort of application. Let's say it's a simple I don't know, registry, land registry of some sort or whatever. We've experimented with a few things, and then it will have a number of smart contracts that makes up the actual code of that, and that would be replaced as sort of the server logic in a server, and everyone that's a node would be running that server essentially, would be running the same code on their machine. So that's it has the code, but then again, yes, that's one thing, but then you have, like I said, you have distributed databases, you have a lot of technology that's similar, and I think that the simple answer really is that when you take everything into account, blockchains just do a lot of these things: security, and this distribution of that data, and the logic, and all. It does everything, all of that in one package, sort of, and it does it fairly well. But I mean, there's a lot of things we also don't know, especially when it comes to performance and such, being that you have to commit. I mean, there's a lot of questions still. Really not whether it will be used, but to what extent you'll be able to do certain things, and or if we need to really like extend the technology, really parts of it, before it becomes sort of competitive in certain areas. Yeah.
So as far as I understand, yeah, carry on.
No, that's it.
So as far as I understand, it sort of becomes easier to, because there are ways, let's say the blockchain data structure doesn't exist, and there is a way to have a cryptographically verifiable data on the server, but it would be a bit more, it would be more difficult to basically make the same thing to run on the server, as Theo described, like when you just give everyone a password, and if something is changed, people are going to see it. So it's just it's possible, but it's going to be more complicated. So
well, I understood that it does a lot more than just something like Google Docs. Where you do see so and so edited this document, but like you said, you're getting security, and you can distribute code and do a lot of other things that you can't do with these traditional databases. Also, I'd like to remind, before we get back to this discussion, I'd like to remind anyone watching, if you have a question, then use the Google Plus questions, or write your question in the comments, and we'll be sure to get back with you. So I also wanted to just ask, can you describe a real simple use of a smart contract, Andreas? Because a lot of people talk about smart contract this, smart contract that, but just give us a real simple example of one, and how I would need to use a blockchain in order to secure this contract.
Yeah, so the contracts, they have access to a lot of the blockchain data. For example, you can are you still hearing me well, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can get things like current block numbers. You can get also things that comes with the transaction, which account did this particular transaction originate for, and all of that sort of blockchain stuff is accessible from the contract. So let's say you want to make we had this Hello World application that ran on this our Thelonious client, which was our first client, and what you did, it was very simple. It had a smart contract in it to which you could transact. For those who doesn't know, smart contract code is compiled code. It's just byte code that is stored in an account. So unlike in Bitcoin, where, from what I understand, Bitcoin doesn't have any accounts. It doesn't have any sort of data structure for an account, but instead the balance of an account is it's sort of derived from all the transactions that's been done to and from that account. But Ethereum has, which is the sort of the base technology, I guess the example of this type of tech, and it has that, and you can put code in an account and it becomes a contract account, and that code is script. It's just script. It's nothing more to it really. It's like Java or anything, JavaScript, C. It's just code. So, but you have access to some of the blockchain stuff and crypto, some crypto functions, whatever they put into the virtual machine, essentially. But so in this case, okay, we made it so that you could put a smart contract in an account, and then everyone transacts to that account, and then the smart contract code is executed. And what the contract did is that you would send in a hash for a file. No, you would send in the application. You would send in a file, and what it would do, it would send that file to IPFS. Does anyone know what that is?
Yeah, we briefly spoke with Theo about it because they come into CCC as well.
Basically, we can say it's a torrent. It would send the file to a distributed file store. Like it could have been a torrent or anything. And then we get a hash from that. And then we would write that hash into the smart contract, because every account that has code in it also has a storage. So that you can use, it has a private storage which you use to write data into. So it would store that hash of that file in that contract storage along with the name that you provided. And then others could fetch that. They could look in that contract and see, okay, what files are here, and then they could see that, okay, this file is here, it's called test file, and it has this hash, and then they got the hash from the contract, used that hash to get the file from IPFS, or it could have been a torrent, and then they got the file that way. So the smart contract acted like a registry for everything that was added. And that was very simple. You added a file, you got the hash, you put the hash in the smart contract. But if you want to, for example, if you want proof, then okay, did someone add this file? Then it's all there, because it's all, it's a blockchain, so you can get all that, and you can have even added security. For example, we could have made it programmable, so when someone called that contract to remove, for example, remove a file, it could check, is this the same person, the same account that added it? Because we could write, as someone added a file, we could write the account that did that, write the address of that account and associate that with that particular file. So am I rambling or?
No, that's it makes sense. I get it. For let's just say for someone that is totally not a programmer and doesn't even get what just a script is, what can I use this for? What do I need this for? I mean, I would assume I can say, let's say, a simple form of escrow, or maybe a CFD or some kind of derivative, or what are some, just throw out some practical use cases that I can use this for that are beneficial as opposed to what we have now.
Well, for one, you can make currencies because you can store, you can use a smart contract to create a currency if you want, even though it's not it's not the purpose. I mean, the purpose is it's more of a general purpose script, but you could do it simply by allowing people to register, for example, in which case they would get 1,000 tokens or something, and then they could be allowed to make tokens in some way, and they could be allowed to transfer them to other accounts, and then you have a currency. And you can do, yes, like you said, one of the things that we're trying to do about mentioned escrows is something that the CEO, Casey Kuhlman, he's a lawyer, and he's trying to move some legal stuff onto blockchains. I don't know exactly how or anything like that, but basically it calls it dual integration, where you can, for example, take a a real contract, you sign it, you have a hash of that file, and then you write that into a smart contract, and it's sort of many, I guess, minor. You wouldn't probably not write an entire server, an operating system, even though technically that would be possible, because it's just script. But yeah, contracts, small things, small currencies, altcoins. Ethereum, for example, the predecessor has a number of those, and they even have an interface for altcoins in particular that comes with a client. Yeah, I actually made one of the first major applications on non-trivial applications on the Ethereum, and that was an organization. You could register as a citizen, and there was an internal currency there that you could use, and you could buy land. There was a lot of stuff there, actually pretty big. But
You're
that
talking
also
about People's Republic of Doug.
yeah, yes. So and also it had the consensus stuff, the voting. I think, like you mentioned, also an organizational things is probably it's a good fit for this tech. I think things that has to do with consensus and organization and such.
So basically, any kind of business logic can be expressed in a set of contracts. So basically, any kind of project management stuff. Right now, we can have, let's say, project management software running on someone's server, and then maybe some tasks distributed or some decisions being made. For instance, I will give this example. We've been using OneClickOrgs, which is just simple voting application when you just make proposals, amendments to a constitution that your organization can have, but it's all stored either on your server or on the server that OneClickOrgs provide. So which means that it's sort of not really, still there is a central authority which will make a decision. So technically it can go up shit creek. So if you do exactly the same thing, but you do it completely decentralized and everyone, and you have, I don't know, 200 people committing the blocks, and if, like, I don't know, maybe I'm a bit too dreamy, but if, let's say, you can automate some, let's say, payments, or if you, like I mentioned, upvote something online, then there's always, with the server, with the central server, there will be always someone in the end who collects all these votes, and sort of it becomes, and then makes a decision, makes a certain action. So technically you can have a script which lives on the blockchain, which is a contract, and then he just waits for people or other contracts to interact with it to perform a certain action. Let's say, as far as I understand People's Republic of Doug, for instance, if, let's say, I just start as a citizen with very small amount of permissions, then there will be a set of actions that, I don't know, maybe I get some votes, or maybe I perform certain actions or take on certain tasks or whatever, and then it's going to automatically give me different permissions. Maybe permissions to upvote other people or whatever. So it's sort of it can express any kind of democratic governance, or democratic or not necessarily democratic.
Yes, you're very on the point. The fact is that this code that we talked about, contract code, it's being executed on every node will execute that code, and they will be able to see the code. So you can't, like you said, it's not someone somewhere, server somewhere, whose code you don't know what it is doing that, but it's run and it's very transparent in that way. So it's very good for things like the democratic things, or things that has to do with consensus, where you need to be able to verify that someone did in fact vote or allow this or that thing.
Right, so but it's still trustful, right? Like what we were saying earlier, that it's not trustless, it's trustful. So I mean, it could be, quote, democratic in that everyone has the same vote, but I could still theoretically, take over the Republic of Doug somehow by, bribing people outside, in person or something like this, and colluding, or I don't know what. I'm just trying to figure out how I could game all of this. It's still gameable. it's just a tool that is quite efficient and very transparent, from what I understand, right?
Yes, and ours is even less transparent. I mean, you can make it so that only certain people are allowed to vote and such for businesses, and so we even, let's say, exactly like in Open Ethereum, the thing we were talking about, this voting, that actually happened to me. I got locked out of my own system because I did some mistake, and it's, yeah, like when you have a system like that, it's actually very fascinating. You don't have any server, you don't have any central authority, then all these problems arise. Like how do you actually do this? I mean, it has to be consensus, but I tried to set up some sort of like balance of power thing. Try to have many different. You could be a judge, or you could be an administrator, you could be a politician or something. Like they all had different jobs, and they all like watched each other. So it's of course it's completely possible to break.
Yeah, so it's basically all the question of design, because you
Yes.
can design pretty much anything. Same with democracy, like you can have, like we sort of talk about democracy in politics as if it were some sort of one thing, but we can, I mean, different countries design in totally different ways. So what I was thinking of as an example, like I was a part of many weird little projects and small companies, small NGOs trying to cooperate and so on. So, and people eating each other alive, and maybe the private blockchain example would make sense not only within an organization where they might as well just run a server, but to set up more fluid and dynamic partnerships between smaller organizations, and sort of trying to make it sort of trustful, but still people which are not really your company and not your friends, but still you will know that they're running the same thing and they have a certain amount of votes, etc. So it's sort of a meta level project management. So this kind of use case I can think of, let's say when if, I don't know, 5 different organizations apply for funding together, they might as well just start running project management system on the blockchain. I don't know if I'm rambling now.
It's okay. Yeah, I think that is a use. I was trying to follow. I'm trying to follow exactly what you mean, but I think it could make things more fluid for people that you might not know in person, but still want to trust. I think that's kind of what you were talking about, right?
Yeah, because
Hmm.
for instance, if let's say, I don't know, now I'm gonna ramble for a while. If let's say I applied for a grant with 5 different universities and 5 different companies and whatever, and we're all supposed to deliver certain things, and then what I can do, I can have a central, I don't know, audit who gonna, some sort of a separate organization who's just gonna decide whether this person delivered this and whether this worked out like that, whether they have to unlock the rest of their funding or whatever, or I can just create some sort of well, hopefully quite easily when all this technology is up and running, uh, create some sort of a way for all the members to actually decide whether they satisfied with it. So the decision's not going to be coming from a central authority, and at the same time, these people not necessarily have to trust each other. So this
Okay.
kind of it's almost like dispute prevention stuff.
Yeah. So it's sounds like an example of a DAO, of a decentralized autonomous organization, or semi-autonomous, or whatever. At least the decision making was partially decentralized. Okay, well, we're going to wrap it up. Andreas, do you have any final words for us about smart contracts, blockchains, etc.?
I guess that most of the things that we've been talking about now with all this open the governance and that's more of in the Ethereum turf, I guess. When you talk about these systems where everyone can join, the whole point really uh, of these chains that we do is to make chains that where you decide beforehand, and of course you can extend while it runs, but you decide who is allowed to do commit blocks and such things, and you program before who gets to do it, and you do that so you can make a fairly normal application, but you can leverage all this the blockchain technology. So like if you want to make some big open governance, maybe it's better to do that on Ethereum, for example. But if you have a specific need, when you make an application that has a specific thing, you want to be able to control who gets to do what to some degree. Then that's what we do.
Okay, great. Any final thoughts, Ksenia?
No, I don't know. Pretty much the same thoughts I had, because like something that I was talking about, it's not necessarily open to the point that anyone can just join and commit and whatever purchase a currency which is used, like gas and Ethereum. But if I have a project and let's say I have, I don't know, 100 co-working spaces, but they're not a part of one organization. They let's say they're like a limited liability partnership or whatever. I just want to do some sort of project with them and know that they cooperate. So then I don't want, I don't know, some kid in Russia to join my blockchain. I just give only my partners permissions to commit and to run these contracts. And that's how I imagine a private chain. And then I can just wrap it up and stop it, or I can change something, or I can just make myself not to be able to change anything, even though I can be a god and an admin. I can program it in a way that I wouldn't be able to change anything unless all the members are going to agree to it. So even like Andreas mentioned that he got locked out of People's Republic of Doug because you can sort of give up, even though you can be a designer of it and a manager, you still can add a feature in which you wouldn't be able to just fuck everyone over, basically. So
okay, yeah, that is kind of ironic that you got locked out of your own project. Yeah, sure, Andres, you can add that to the end now. You can make it. You can what you're just chatting right now.
Oh yes, we talked about this permissions. I just want to be clear that you can not only decide who gets to commit blocks, but you can set other permissions. So a normal use case, you'd probably want a certain set of nodes to be allowed to commit blocks to sort of keep the system running. You don't want to give that permission to just any user. But you may want to give read access to most users. You may want a category of users that is allowed to do certain rights as well, which you can control through smart contracts. So you may want to be able to let anyone that wants to register, for example, register for an account. That would, I guess, most applications would want that. Want to give people the possibility to register as a user. And so they have some level of right access, but yeah, you can control this more fine-grained. So it's not just about committing blocks.
Yeah, I had a final thought actually, just to what Andreas said. Basically, you can, if you use a blockchain with lower difficulty, you don't want to use any kind of advanced technology and miners and so on. But at the same time, if you want to prevent some Sybil attack, you might. That's why you might actually decide whom you're gonna grant the permit to mine it. Otherwise, if it's a low difficulty chain, I can just create whatever amount of nodes and start mining it and do whatever I like. But that I'm not sure if I'm correct here, because I'm thinking of proof of work rather than proof of stake. That we can maybe discuss in another.
Okay.
show.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We could have another show about proof of work and proof of stake and other consensus mechanisms and what all that means and pros and cons, etc. So, um, Eris chain is basically a neutered public chain. I really like that definition, Andreas. That does kind of break it down for everyone. And yeah, so today we tried to go over some utilities for private blockchains and what that's all about. And I hope you enjoyed watching. That was transmission number 42. Make sure to thumbs up, subscribe, share, and comment. Big shout out to World Crypto Network, which is where this video is right now. Also check out altcoinpress.com and coingecko.com/buzz, where you also will find episodes of Transmission. Don't forget to check out the Blab that's coming up in about an hour. Link is in the comments. I'll be talking to Valturo. Again, you've watched Transmission number 42 on World Crypto Network. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Bye.